Public Relations. Edward L. Bernays. 1945. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 2. Public Relations in Action. 31. Human Relations: the Way to Labor Management Adjustments. For the United States to maintain and expand its living standards under our democratic profit system, harmonious relations between management and labor are imperative. They present primarily a problem in human relations. Culture is a seamless web, Stuart Chase has observed. All useful conclusions about human relations, the behavior of groups and social psychology are relevant to the factory, the office, and the profession of management. They are, of course, equally relevant to the activities of labor unions. In all misunderstandings between management and labor, both sides must of necessity appeal to public opinion. In a talk delivered at the 23rd Annual Industrial Conference of the Pennsylvania State College, I pointed out that the attempt of either management or labor to win public opinion to its side alone is in itself no solution. This chapter deals with the problem of how management can build a real case which both the public and labor will accept. In the hope of stimulating a solution, I have outlined a 7-point program. Management still has a crucial problem in labor relations. Seemingly, it has tried to handle the situation by a magic method, somehow mysteriously influencing public opinion to support management, thus removing all difficulties and unpleasantness. The basic question how management can effectively present its labor relations case before the bar of public opinion needs to be examined in the light of management's actions, both toward labor and toward the public. I shall postpone conclusions until after we have examined the facts. One outstanding fact is this: in the year 1946, 116 million man-days were lost by strikes, exceeding by far the loss for any previous full year in our history. We must realize that strikes are symptomatic of a disease. They are not the cause of disruption in labor management relations, but their result. Adjustments must be made by the use of intelligence and logic, or the number of man-days lost through strikes may well be even greater. We must remember that the situation is highly complicated, and that oversimplification will accomplish nothing. But in order to get at the cause of friction in industrial relations, let us agree on one basic assumption: the United States must have internal peace between management and labor if we are to maintain and expand our standard of living under a democratic profit system. Therefore, labor and management must find larger areas of agreement in planning and working together for common goals. Both must assume responsibility to the public welfare to ensure that our system shall function effectively, prosper, and grow. All of us want abundance, stability, freedom, and peace. We want to avoid insecurity, unemployment, depression, scarcity. Management must remember that there are 14 to 16 million members of trade unions in America today, organized in the AFL, the CIO, and independent unions. Multiply that figure by the number of their dependents and you have accounted for practically half of our population. It must realize that in today's world new political philosophies and values confront us everywhere, and that it cannot merely defend the status quo if we in America are to survive and go forward. It must remember that unions and collective bargaining are an integral part of our industrial system, that wages will keep pace with the price level, that, unless war comes, hours of work will become fewer, not more, and that standards and conditions of work will improve. To survive, the present industrial system must be capable of functioning without continuous internecine struggle. If either management or labor succeeds in tipping the balance of government too far in its favor, we are headed for trouble. Government in the role of umpire should be fair and just, informed and intelligent, and unprejudiced toward either side. A solution must be found to labor and management maladjustments before management can present its case effectively to the public. To win the support of public opinion, management must have a real case that enlightened labor and the public will support, just as labor must have a real case that enlightened management and the public will support. The solution must be evolutionary, not revolutionary. Present points of view and courses of action must be adjusted to conditions that actually exist today. This solution cannot be merely a matter of words, press releases or press relations, or a superficial selling job. Incantation of the magic phrases, free enterprise, the American system, the law of supply and demand, no government regulation, is of no avail. Repetition of them is to place one's faith in witchcraft. Public opinion polls indicate that the public will be the decisive factor in the outcome of the struggle between management and labor. It would be well, then, to examine some of these polls so that we may have a sound basis of fact for our conclusions. In the January and June, 1946, issues of Fortune, Elmo Roper published the results of polls in which the public was queried concerning which side it would favor in industrial disputes if it were called upon to referee. In January 1946, 45% of the public favored management, 26% supported labor, and 29% had no opinion. By June 1946, public opinion had swung to labor's side to this degree: 37% favored labor, 36% favored management, and 26% had no opinion. In March 1949, a poll taken by the American Institute of Public Opinion on whether labor laws should be so drawn as to permit the right to strike showed the following results: 55% said yes, 33% said no, and 12% had no opinion. The shift to labor came from management supporters. The public adherents of management had lost faith in management's handling of the industrial relations situation. It should be noted that there is no preponderant public attitude favoring either labor or management. Further proof that even management had a bad opinion of its industrial relations is indicated by another poll that appeared in the March 1946 issue of Fortune and showed that management does not believe it has fulfilled its social responsibility to workers. Representative executives were asked whether they believed management had social responsibility beyond the sphere of profits. 93.5% of management thought management should assume social responsibility. But when management appraised itself, approximately one-third of the executives replied that only a quarter or less of management has social consciousness. Another one-third thought less than half of management has social consciousness, and only one-third believed that more than 50% of management has social consciousness. A National Opinion Research Center poll of September 1945 showed the following response to the question: suppose the government has no control over how businesses are run in this country. Whom do you think this would help most? 74% thought this would help big business most, 11% the people as a whole, 11% didn't know, 6% thought small business. Some of the respondents gave more than one answer, and here is further evidence. In a poll published in Fortune in June 1946, the public blamed labor unions, government, and management equally for their parts in the poor handling of the strike situation in the winter of 1945-46. 27.8% felt that labor unions had done the poorest job, 24.9% named government, 22.5% said management, 24.8% did not know. This response certainly indicates that the public has no preponderant feeling one way or the other. It also indicates that labor and management both need the support of public opinion. An encouraging straw in the wind, shown in a Fortune poll published in the spring of 1946, is that 52.3% of Americans are optimistic that good industrial relations may be brought about, only 27.2% think it unlikely, and 20.5% do not know. It is particularly encouraging to note that the percentage of professionals and executives who are optimistic is 5% higher than other occupational groups. How can management build a real case that both the public and labor will accept? In dealing with labor management problems, management suffers from a cultural time lag. As I have previously pointed out, this phrase succinctly describes the gap that exists between what people actually do and what they could do in the light of the knowledge available. It sums up the holdover of outworn and antiquated attitudes. For instance, in 1868, according to a Massachusetts Senate document, an agent of an important factory was asked whether manufacturers did anything for the physical, intellectual, and moral welfare of their workers. "We never do," he said. "As for myself, I regard my work people just as I regard my machinery. So long as they can do my work for what I choose to pay them, I keep them, getting out of them all I can. When my machines get old and useless, I reject them and get new, and these people are part of my machinery." A businessman who thinks along 1868 lines today, and there are far too many who do, illustrates the operation of the cultural time lag. Today, he cannot safely profess unconcern for the human factor in industrial organization. Maurice Vitelis, in his book Industrial Psychology, writes, "The success of our industrial civilization, as well as of individual plants, depends not only upon the worker's skill in the operation of the machine but also upon such strictly human attributes as his attitude toward them and upon the satisfaction which he obtains in their operation." Narrowing the gap between this type of industrial relations outlook and that of 1868 is one of management's chief tasks today. It can no longer safely continue with discredited, narrow-gauge theories to guide its actions. F. J. Roethlisberger, in his Management and Morale, wrote of the Western Electric Company's program of human relations at the Hawthorne Works. He stressed the need for management to develop equilibrium between its demands for efficiency and the desire of the worker for personal satisfaction and social acceptance. Only when the people at the top of the organization really understand the feelings and sentiments of the people at the bottom, he says, can they make the needs of management understood by the workers. A poll taken by the American Institute of Public Opinion in December 1949 asked whether luncheon clubs as informal meetings between factory workers and businessmen to promote better understanding should be favored. Results showed 71% to be in favor, 17% opposed, and 11% of no opinion. The question resolves itself into management's attitudes and actions toward the worker as evidenced daily in every point of contact between them, from matters of pay to ventilation. Theory must be behind all action in the hard world of reality. Every action of man is based primarily on theory. Industry gratefully applies theory to its problems of technological development, but it is far less enlightened when dealing with the human element in labor relations. This is typical of modern society, in which our use of technological knowledge has far outstripped our knowledge of human behavior. Today, industrial management must apply to its industrial relations the theories of human behavior developed in the social science laboratories. To use this knowledge is not being visionary. It is the highest type of practical, self-interested, enlightened realism. Management has emphasized the technical and financial features of business at the expense of the psychological factors. What good is it to use old methods if they don't work? What use is it to hold lines that will not hold? It is interesting and significant, for instance, to know that workers' demands for status and satisfaction are much more positive than is commonly believed. The desire of the individual worker for status, personal achievement, social acceptance, the feeling of belonging, shows up in many different ways. He may want to obtain psychological, social, and financial satisfaction. Security, higher pay, opportunity, status, and recognition of accomplishment are all important. A telephone girl expressed it this way to a New York Times reporter: "We're telling the company we're not part of the switchboard anymore. We are people and we got to be treated like people." Another worker said to the same reporter, "I'm ready to admit our people could get a lot more done without really extending themselves. But why should they? They'll never do it as long as they believe that the boss, not the workers, will get the benefit from their working harder. You can talk yourself blue in the face about how prosperity for everybody depends on high production. You'll never make it real to the worker in the shop unless he feels that he is a partner in the business. And when I say partner, I mean partner. That's not just something in an annual report or a Christmas message from the front office. Partnership is something that affects the whole running of the plant. You've got to give the workers a voice in how things are done and how the profits are divided." That this sentiment is typical is shown by a survey of factory workers made by Fortune in 1943, when 75% of those queried stated they would like to elect someone to represent them on the board of directors or some sort of management council. They thought their elected official should have something to say regarding working conditions, wages, promotions, production plans, and salary of management. Father William J. Smith, in his book, Spotlight on Labor Unions, expressed the same point of view. He sees an era of increased industrial conflict ahead unless labor is given the status of copartnership in the management of industrial enterprises, because, he writes, profits, prices, and rates of production are legitimate concerns of labor and have a vital relationship to working conditions. He also warns industry that unless management takes the leadership in forming and building better relationships between itself and its workers, and recognizes the dignity of the individual, conflict will continue in an intensified form. Today many Americans think that labor should also be given greater participation in the nation's defense policies, although opinion on this matter is about evenly divided. A poll taken by the American Institute of Public Opinion in April, 1951, revealed that for nearly every voter who thought labor should have more to say about the country's defense policies, there was another voter who believed that labor was getting enough attention in the defense setup. But the pro-labor voters were slightly more numerous. Of those questioned, 41% said labor should have more say, 40% said it should not, and 19% expressed no opinion. The foregoing has been more than sufficient to illustrate the largely uncharted aspects of human relations in the labor management field. Management must solve the question of its responsibilities before it can present a tenable case for itself. In the hope of stimulating such a solution, I should like to offer a long-range 7-point program. 1. We have a reservoir of knowledge, case methods, and studies on human relations and industrial relations. This material is scattered all over America, in university, private, and public libraries, and in the minds of individuals. American industry, through national organizations, trade associations, or individual organizations, should study and codify this material, make it widely available in intelligible form. We need mining and refining of this material, so it can be put to use. 2. Many organizations are studying these problems and publishing their findings. Management should cooperate with and assist such organizations by supporting them through financial or personnel aid. The American Management Association, the Society for the Advancement of Management, the Society for the Psychological Study of Social Issues, and the American Sociological Society all merit investigation by businessmen, who may profit from the studies these organizations are making and act on their findings. 3. Universities and colleges are also engaged in serious studies of human and industrial relations problems. To name only a few, there are extensive programs underway at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the University of Pennsylvania, Dartmouth College, Princeton University, and Cornell University. Management should actively support the universities, aid and cooperate through scholarships and other kinds of endowments, through the use of research, faculties, and graduates. 4. Technological research should be applied to increasing industrial productivity through more efficient machinery. If our system of free enterprise is to go ahead, increased savings in production must be passed on to the public in lower costs. Some uninformed labor leaders fight technological efficiency on the grounds that it will reduce employment. Intelligent management and labor leaders do not stand in the way of progress that will benefit both. 5. Progressive management has already demonstrated in action a number of ideas that represent the beginning of an attack on the industrial relations problem. Some of the plans that have proved fruitful are the annual or guaranteed wage, arbitration, incentive pay, and fact-finding boards. But these methods are only a first step. Additional ways and methods must be found. We must advance still further. And all plans need deeper study and consideration. 6. There must be a wider and more intelligent use of specialized industrial relations personnel. The industrial relations man can be an important bridge between management and the employees. Many industrial relations men handle workers as if they were their enemies rather than their coworkers. Others don't even know there is a book on the subject. But there are men who do know, and such men, and the companies employing them, have fewer industrial relations problems. 7. The public must be educated to an understanding of what the American industrial system means to them. Now we get our public education in the form of slogans and biased propaganda from all sides. We must attack the problem on an objective level, with a genuine desire to inform, expressing our aims in straightforward terms that everyone will understand. Intelligent men and women interested in preserving an evolutionary democratic America must aid and assist in the process. To preserve America, we must preserve a productive and progressive business structure. Labor, too, as a large segment of the public, must be educated. Some of labor's leadership is poor, just as some of management's leadership is poor by its own self-appraisal. There are labor dictators and labor monopolists, just as there are dictators and monopolists in the ranks of management. Labor should be organized on a more democratic basis. The labor movement in this country is still relatively young, and while some of its leaders are mature, others are unaccustomed to responsibility. Management can aid unions to become mature, and it must abandon the thesis that it will profit from disorganization in labor. It is true that some labor leadership is undisciplined and irresponsible, that there are wildcat, outlaw, jurisdictional, and slowdown strikes. This is all the more reason for management to encourage the training of an intelligent, mature labor leadership. If management does not, demagogues may gain control. Partnership between workers and management can come only as the result of maturity on both sides. And it might be well to point out that no legalistic solution, no fist from above, can solve the problem. There is a wealth of experience to indicate that industrial peace may be realized through cooperative employer-employee relationships. As examples, we have but to study the stable bargaining relationships that have existed for many years between employer associations and metropolitan unions in such industries as the needle trades, men's and women's clothing, men's hats, and millinery. Our emphasis must be on cooperation, in domestic affairs as in international. Internationally, with the threat of the atomic bomb hanging over us, we are striving for one world. In our industrial relations in this country, we must strive for one world also. With much of management opposed to the approximately 16 million Americans who are members of labor unions, we can readily see that unless an entente is brought about, we shall have a debacle. The debacle will be a dictatorship of the right or the left aimed at keeping one or the other side in order. Management and labor must both do their part, to see that they conform to the new conditions, that change is kept within a working evolutionary framework. The attempt of either management or labor to win public opinion to its side alone is in itself no solution. The job both of management and of labor must be to put their own houses in order so that they can begin to develop a public opinion that will itself look beyond the conflicting claims of group interest. There is no shortcut to this goal. About the only guarantee of industrial peace is for management and labor alike to apply the science of human relationships to this problem. If management accepts its responsibility to achieve co-partnerships with workers, the public will give management its vote of confidence.